for my tea and cake? Can that come over Zoom?
I can offer you a biscuit. That's...
Oh, no, I was hoping for some nice chocolate cake or fruit cake, something like that. So we're ready to roll?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, sorry I can't be with you, although this morning in the local Toronto paper, it did say that restrictions on Canadians visiting England are going to be relaxed. So I'm hoping to get across, I'm thinking next April, and we had a preliminary talk about this. If I can see you in person in April, that would be great. Today, I want to focus on the associations of St. Mary's Iffley with Kenilworth and connections with the Clinton family and their churches at Cassington and Stukely, and also Kenilworth Priory. We will look at family resemblances between these churches and consider the significances of similarities and differences in regard to the role of the patrons in the design. We then turn to specific aspects of Iffley, including the setting of the north and south doorways in projecting frames, and associations for chevron and beakhead ornament, parallels in Oxfordshire and vicinity, and I end up with reference to possibilities for painted decoration and also a quick visit to St. Andrews at Headington. So we have a bundle of slides for you to see. Essentially, I'm going to talk you through them. I thought for a moment with the technical difficulties, I may be able to have a dream come true, and that is to present the visuals and have everybody in the audience work out what I was going to say. It's always an indication of just how well the images are organized, but I guess you've got me. We start with a plan of Iffley, and I should refer back here to Mark's image, which was better than this, which showed an original apse at the east end. So imagine that in there. Otherwise, vaulted eastern bay here, followed by a central axial tower, aisleless nave, and one very unusual feature, north, south, and west doorways. There aren't too many of those in the country. So I think for starters, that indicates we're going to have connections with other buildings I'll be showing, including plan of St. Michael's Parish Church in Stukely. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, let me just go on and everybody cross their fingers. I think that's good luck. Stukely has its original 3-cell plan with a square-ended chancel covered at the moment by the thumbnails, but you can just make out, I hope, that we've got a rib vaulted chancel. So that's in exactly the same place as the square bay at Iffley. In other words, immediately east of the axial tower. Aisleless nave. I might note in passing the placement of the font in the western bay, and also north, south, and western porches. So that's enough to generally ally it with the arrangement we have at Iffley. If we go up the A40, turn off to the north, we can visit St. Peter's Cassington, which is founded by Geoffrey de Clinton, before 1123. You can just see the square chancel, which is off to the right. There's the axial tower, aisleless nave. Note in this case, no western doorway, but we do have the south, and there's one to match it over on the north side. And notice it's in a projecting frame. The porch is later, but that frame is part of the original. And I guess also parenthetically, go to Cassington with your binoculars and take a good look at the corbel. It's a wonderful set of corbels right the way around the church, so highly recommend it. And that just reminds you of St. Mary's with a similar view. You can see the would-be corbel table, but few remaining. And I should also just highlight the projection of the frame for the doorway, and also the west front. Notice it's ashlar construction rather than the rubble of the side. So this is very much for the audience here. Will come also to the triple arch arrangement. To take you once again to Stukely, this time live, so to speak, rather than just in the plan, square east end, axial crossing tower with some intersecting arcading. It's not as elaborate as Iffley, but still quite fancy. And then round to the west front. And this is the arrangement that I think is also not only very unusual, but interestingly related to St. Mary's. We have these two blind arches to the side. And there, to take you round to the northwest to show that arrangement on the west front and to illustrate the projection of the frame for the north doorway. There's the north doorway in an engraving at Stukely. Good, let's take you back to Cassington and a look inside. I'm standing in the nave, so looking through the west arch of the axial tower, you can work out that it's not vaulted from there. The arch leading into the vaulted chancel with rib vaults, so that the arrangement of those motifs is just the same as we get at both Stukely and at Iffley, and that takes you a little further in. We're in under the tower, and you can see quite clearly the rib vault, four-part rib vault in the chancel. Not as elaborate as we have at Iffley. There's no zigzag ornament there, which I guess if we're thinking in typological terms, we can say, yes, well, if this is up by 1123, give it another quarter century, and we can end up with something like this. We're looking east. This is the relevant bay as we look from the tower. And to remind you once again that both Mark and I are suggesting a semicircular apse that runs around there before the, I guess we can call it the enlargement of the chancel area. Very rich chevron decoration, not only on the arch, but also the ribs. There we go, that illustrates this. Mark, I was thrilled with your mandrake analysis on this, so that works very nicely. And also, just in passing, let's note the Tournai marble. I'm not going to say anything more about it, but I will throw out one analog for you. Take you to Stukely. There's a view looking east from the nave, and once again, to emphasize the spaces, wood roof nave. It's wood in the, hello, lost my cursor, wood under the tower, and then a rib vaulted eastern bay. The other thing to note, which is really quite unusual, is that the interior of the windows at Stukely are richly carved. We've got chevron ornament. It's not identical to Iffley, but again, it's something that is, I think, significantly unusual. Let's take you into detail, the Stukely chancel. There you've got the general view with the four-part rib vault. The painting, incidentally, is supposed to be an accurate recreation of what they found there. So it's restored 12th century work. I am running in to detail the rib, so chevron ornament, but different from the detail of chevron that we have at Iffley, which is currently on my screen hidden by our thumbnails, but you will see it there on the left. That's it, beautiful chevron. And this is something to pay particular attention to. That is identical to what we find at Kenilworth. These are ribs now set up on the site of the abbey, the site of the nave arcade. And that indicates to me that there is a very, very close relationship, perhaps even Kenilworth masons being sent to Iffley Failing that, one can imagine profiles being sent. So they would be packed up UPS or whatever they used in the 12th century to send the profile of the ribs down south of Oxford. We can look for other details at Kenilworth that I think are significant. For instance, you will see that we've got the frame setting. There it is. And then just within the frame, a lot of these stylized flowers being used, which do come remarkably close to the arrangement that we have in the chancel jambs at Iffley. So again, either the same masons coming down or a particular pattern that is sent. I'll come back to Beakhead a little bit later. And one other detail from Kenilworth for Iffley, we've got the south doorway at Iffley there. Sorry, I don't have a detail to show you, but there, this beautiful beaded chevron ornament, there is a detail of a similar shaft at Kenilworth. And so what I was saying before about a very close relationship is very much reinforced by this, this parallel. There's another link to be thrown in here, and that I think is with Romsey Abbey, where there's evidence for royal patronage. And I think what we encounter at Iffley is a type of church where the patron wants desperately to be keeping up with the Joneses. You have the best quality work, a range of motifs where you can almost put the royal warrant or something very close to it. So the unusual feature, or another unusual feature that we see at Iffley, the use of these stylized flowers in the arch. This is the closest parallel I know at Romsey, the east processional door. It's possible that there is a further link from Romsey to Old Sarum, but I don't have the images to go into that right now. So, okay, we move the camera back to take a general exterior view of the south of the nave, and it's the motif here, the doorway that is set within a projecting frame that is very interesting. It's something that's talked about a great deal in a group of Worcestershire Romanesque churches. And I show you just one at Stoulton, south of Worcester. And you can see not only the projecting frame, but some of the Worcestershire doorways also have blind arcading up above there. So this is C.J. Bond in 1988, who said, well, you can find some parallels for this in Spain. And one of the examples referred to is here, Saint-Martin Fromester, general southwest view, and yes, there they are quite happily. But it's not just there. I think it's intriguing that you find this example, the south nave doorway at Saint-Senin-Toulouse, one of the major churches of the pilgrimage route. And this is my passing tangential reference to marble. Notice there, hello, I've lost my cursor again. Oh, there it is. We've got reused Roman marble shafts. And what Mark was talking about was the relationship between a major doorway, a major entrance to the church, often referring to the sanctuary. What you also find at Saint-Senin-Toulouse, a reused antique marble shaft up in the eastern chapel of the ambulatory. We've got the tournée inside at Iffley. Sadly, no marble for the doorway. The link, I think, is more general here, and I would like to see all these examples, including Iffley, of projecting frames around doorways relating to Roman triumphal arches, either single or triple one that we see here, almost taken at random from Orange in Provence. And you can see how the central section of the three bays projects forward from the slightly recessed surfaces left and right. It's used before Iffley at a number of places. Milbourne Port in Somerset, probably of the 1080s, and there you've got the portal on the left. Another nice example, Chewton Mendip, not one of the best known Romanesque churches, but there you have the projecting porch. Garton on the Wolds, Yorkshire, Dalmeny up in Midlothian, on and on and on. So I think we have to see a common denominator in there in returning to the Roman past. Southwest of Iffley again, which forms in a way a bit of a transition because that is another interpretation of a triumphal arch, something like the Arch of Constantine. And there it has been specifically suggested that the triple arch arrangement that we have on the west front of Lincoln Cathedral was related directly, modeled directly on the Arch of Constantine, and there it is for you. Okay, the west doorway of St. Mary's for its medallions, about which I'm not going to say anything. Wonderful row, 2 rows of beakhead, and the chevron ornament, which I believe has important local connections. One being the chapter house doorway of St. Friedewald's, the cathedral at Oxford. And I'd like you to look in particular here at the stepping of the chevron. We've got 4 rows, each one stepping out. The only difference is that here they're all put in, no, not all put in, it's a 3 and 1 relationship, but wrong button, there we go, 2 and then 2 that we have here. Okay. For the beakhead, there's a detail for it now, and I would draw particular attention to the very, very fine quality of the detailing, not only there, but also in the very delicate drill work that we see on the heads, and also this similar delicacy in the beading of the cable molding. I mean, it's one thing to have cable molding, that's complicated enough, but then when you go to the extra expense of having those little beads there, we are working with the elite of the elite. Somewhat restored, but beakheads at St. Ebbs in Oxford, and you can see the drill work very happily on that image. Here, back to St. Mary's, you can see the bead work rather more clearly here, this time on the chevron itself. And that you encounter in the mid 18, I'm getting the centuries muddled up, the 1150s at St. Peter's in the east, and again, the beadwork on the beakhead running around there. It's almost as if we're dealing with a workshop, a sculptor's yard that is connected with the city of Oxford and a little beyond, like Astle, just before you get to Burford off the A40. That is a detail of 2 of the heads for you. And then to return to Kenilworth, because what can I say? It puts a little bit of a fly in the ointment, having said on the one hand, wow, there's a really close relationship here, but it doesn't work with the beakheads. So the Kenilworth beakhead can be seen as something that, yes, is taken up in principle at Iffley, but Iffley's using local people. And similarly, a negative view, I've got this and the other arch at Stokely. They don't belong directly either with Iffley or with Kenilworth. So there's a mystery for you, a question. Tell me if you can come up with an answer. one of the closest things I have come across to detailing at St. Mary's is here in the belfry of the axial tower at Burford Parish Church. So let's go through the features. Without a cursor, it would appear the chevron shaft there, the subdivision that we have for the actual openings of the former openings of the belfry, these triangular wedges. I can have another slice of cake with those, which I imagine would have been painted up and perhaps even painted with heads, a sort of poor man's beakhead, if you like. Multiple chevron, 4 rows at that point with fat and thin rolls, and then a hollowed version for the outer order. All motifs that we can relate to St. Mary's. This is a restored version, I believe restored correctly, which when I was speaking last with Mark said, yes, I think that's fine and dandy. So they're one of the belfry openings. And I should note from a point of method that many times people say, oh, look, there's chevron ornament. If you really want to get down to the nitty gritty, it does help to look at the exact profile, the exact pattern that is being used, which is what we have here at Burford. So there, a detail that compares with the Burford triangular blocks, the slices of cake, with, and detailed here on the right, fragments of paint. So I think one of the points that we have to imagine, to envision at Iffley is rich polychrome being used. And that's something that I would just like to turn to briefly. The fragments held in the barn on the site of Kenilworth Priory, more ribs for you, and look at the paint applied here. So again, I think it's something that would have been used there. We have evidence for it with this fictive masonry in the chapter house at St. Fried's Wide, so a fairly standard arrangement of lime washing the masonry, and then you paint on a big thick red lipstick that is painted on to the work. And then something not too far from you, St. James's Church in Cowley, not well known enough. There's a general view, I think a renewed or rebuilt chancel arch, but we're going to give you 2 details. Not only do we have the spiraling shaft on the right, but spirals with paint, a painted cushion capital. And then on the left, diamonds or lozenges, paint to the scallop capital, and then this beautiful scroll off to the left, all part of the original 12th century decoration. A little further north, Bloxham, and not quite so well preserved, but you can see, I think, quite clearly there that the same principle is being applied to the roll moulding in the chancel arch there. And I will end up with something where I haven't found paint, but I thought again it was very interesting in relation to St. Mary's to pop up to Headington. There is the chancel arch, rich with chevron ornament, and also decorated shafts, which yes, I can detail for you there. Variety in the ornament of the shafts, left and right, and then roll moulding continuing into the arch there, and chevron to either side. Just trying to get the cursor to move there. And the same principle here in one of the nave windows at St. Mary's. Good, I have something written for you here. To sum up, the Romanesque fabric of St. Mary's Iffley has basic elements in common with Clinton family churches at Cassington and Stukely. But only at Iffley do we find clear evidence of the employment of masons who also worked at Kenilworth Priory. There also seems to be a connection with royal work at Romsey Abbey, and most importantly for the beakhead, the work of Henry I at Reading Abbey, which you know about. I've not talked about it today. Other aspects of beakhead and chevron ornament are associated with Oxford regional churches, especially Burford, which I hope you can go and explore. And one of the things I also love, I'm being homesick here. There's a lovely butcher in Burford, and to have one of the pork pies is just one of the most wonderful things going. So if you like pork pies, buy yourself one there and enjoy it. Good, thank you very much. I'm glad it all worked out in the end. Over to you, Dave.
Are the beakheads intended to deter the devil? What's their significance?
I think generally, yes. They're a warning sign which frequently crops up in portals. The specific source is almost certainly from Reading Abbey, where Henry I was the builder. It starts in 1121, I think it is. And from Reading, in many churches in Berkshire and Oxfordshire, we find beakhead ornaments. One reference that I can give you, if you go to Google and just type in CRSBI, Crisby, which is the corpus of corpus for Romanesque sculpture in Britain and Ireland. That will take you to a page, and then you can type in Berkshire, Oxfordshire, and it will give you a list of buildings. I've never actually tried beakhead, but you can try that as well. But it's not complete, but a wonderful set of entries, and many including beakhead for Oxfordshire and Berkshire. So once you've seen that, you can go off and do your own tour.
Thank you very much. Crisby, CRSBI, Corpus of Romanesque Sculpture in the British Isles. Everyone got that right?
Crisby.
Crisby.
CRSBI. It's a wonderful internet resource. I have looked at it. Malcolm, to me, a lot of the sculpture looks rather metallic in form. As if copying or trying to render something that was originally cast in metal into stone.
Yes.
And as someone with a background in classical architecture, I can well remember seeing, and you can still see this today, if you go to the Musei Capitolini in Rome, you can see columns that have a spiral, rather like the ones you've been showing us,
yes, in
which the beading that you showed us in stone is actually the place in which literally gemstones and jewels into position. So I just wondered if you might like to say a word about mixed media here, and whether you
I think perhaps more than that, that if we look at the hierarchy of craftsmanship throughout the Middle Ages, but certainly Romanesque and at least into the 13th and possibly the 14th century. But we find that up there, number one is somebody who works with precious metals. So if you're a goldsmith, then you're at the peak of achievement there. And if, at least temporarily, I can go across to France, if not with the same stylistic label, read Abbot Suger of the work he did at his Abbey Church of Saint-Denis. Now, he rebuilds the West Front, and there are three massive portals there, one of which originally included a mosaic, but the sculpture, which is discussed in detail by art historians in the 19th and 20th century, Suger, who commissioned the stuff, doesn't even mention them. On the other hand, he goes into incredible detail on the metalwork and stained glass. So that was important to him. You look closely there, at the sculpture of the West Portal and the number of references you find, particularly in the finer ornament, to metalwork. And yes, basically it's, I think, a poor man's metalwork there, that we can't afford to have gold or even bronze on the portals, but then we will have them carved in stone and they can be painted and ornamented as if it was precious metal. So I think that tradition is very, very important indeed. And some of the details I showed, the beading, for example, I don't think there's a natural form for a stone sculptor to be working on. It's really tricky. I mean, I think I would have been useless at doing that, trying to get those fine little beads done. But as a metal worker, it's something that is naturally part of the trade, so to speak.
Malcolm, one of the things that I think is evident in the south door at Iffley, the eastern side, there is evidence, I think, that probably glass rather than any gem or anything like that was used to decorate some of those attached columns. Particularly interesting, it's on the east side, not on the west side.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. I'll have to scratch my head, Mark.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone else have any questions? No?
Good.
In that case, I think we will draw this meeting.